Hi guys and girls, I'm Obsidian Ant and this is Warframe. So at this point, Warframe is a pretty well known game, and whilst I've never actually covered it on this channel, it's nonetheless a game that has kept my attention over the years. Now, I'm a huge fan of PvE combat, and as you know, I love sci-fi games. Warframe then brings a good mix of both. Over this weekend, Warframe developer Digital Extremes held TennoCon, a yearly Warframe convention, and they had a couple of very impressive, extremely heavy-hitting announcements, and these came in the form of reveals for Warframe's next two updates. And without a doubt, fans of space games are going to want to stick around to hear about the second of these updates called Railjack, and you can see a little footage of that in the background right now. So what is Warframe? Well, Warframe is largely a PvE based game with a few PvP arenas. The idea is to progress through the game and unlock a variety of items such as weapons and warframes. And warframes are the biomechanical units through which you play and interact with the environment, as well as conduct all the combat. Now, as this is a free-to-play game, this gear can also be purchased with real-world cash. However, that said, Warframe is largely considered to be a fair free-to-play game. In other words, whilst paying cash will unlock these items for you, it doesn't necessarily give you an unfair advantage, and that really is basically the principle behind Digital Extremes' approach to Warframe. Over the 5 years of the game's lifespans, however, that hasn't always been the case, but ultimately today it's generally very well balanced in terms of its microtransactions. A testament to the game's balance and success can be seen in the fact that it's consistently in the Steam top 10 games in terms of concurrent players. Now, for me personally, one of the very interesting things about Warframe is that it was initially designed as a minimal viable product with the intent to iterate upon over the course of its lifespan. And this has proven to be very much a winning formula, no doubt helped by the fact that Digital Extremes listen very closely to their community. There's actually a number of very good examples of this, and one such was an exploit players found to traverse the maps very quickly. Instead of nerfing this, Digital Extremes built upon the gameplay the players had chanced upon. Warframe's development is full of stories like this. In short then, in just a few years, Warframe has developed from a shooter set in relatively small arenas to a game with full-scale open-world maps, and very soon now full-on space ship-to-ship combat. So what's the big deal with the two new upcoming updates then? Well, firstly, Fortuna, the nearest update, is going to open up the game with a new hub which players can explore in between missions. This hub is a massive underground complex that has a number of cyberpunk themed visuals. Fortuna also comes with a new massive open world map set on Venus. The update will also come with a new faction called the Solaris, adding to the already numerous factions of the game. Gameplay on Venus will include various mission types, combat, as well as luring and tracking animals. The Fortuna update is scheduled for an autumn 2018 release. Now, for fans of space games though, it's likely the later update called Railjack will be of particular interest. Railjack will allow players to enter ships on the surface of planets, fly up into orbit, and then engage in ship-to-ship combat. What's more, as this is primarily an FPS game, the shooter aspect of the game will still very much be present. Players will have to repel boarders from their ships, for example, and further, players will be able to leave the ship whilst in space and engage in EVA combat using their Warframe. A natural extension of this will be the ability to enter enemy ships, and some of these are absolutely huge. So all of this unfolds in a cooperative PvE environment, so you can fly the ship whilst a buddy repels boarders and another friend drops into space with a plan to enter an enemy ship. Between you, you'll then be able to work together to take down the enemy capital ships, some of you working from the outside and some of you working from within, taking down the hostiles as well as damaging the ship's interior. In fact, when you take your ship up into space, you'll be able to take 3 friends along with you. What's more is that to all intents and purposes, this happens seamlessly with perhaps a very few very well hidden loading screens. You can go from the hub down on the planet of Venus to the outside of massive open world map, board your ship, fly up into space, and then get involved in space combat. Jump out into your EVA suit, and then board an enemy ship. So yes, epic stuff indeed. The only downside at the moment is that right now there's no release date for Railjack, and it's quite possible that it could be anything up to a year away. What's really worth keeping in mind about Warframe is the pace and progression of the game's development. Digital Extremes' intents for the game have become very clear. Ultimately, Warframe will be a fully fledged sci-fi environment with the ability to walk around hubs that essentially constitute towns. Outside of these hubs, the open world maps are filling up with activities beyond pure combat, and the animal tracking is a great example of this direction. Digital Extremes have proven their capabilities here and shown that for them, iterative game design works exceptionally well. I'm going to be taking a closer look at Warframe in future videos, so do keep an eye out for that. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys and girls next time.